Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to take a look into JDBC application demo. In earlier, we have seen that like how to configure the JDBC application. How does this work? Let's have a quick recap on it, and then we can see that like how the application is going to be provisioned. So let's take the example of track application, which is a JDBC. I have created the database in my local where we are using the users table and capabilities table. Users table will have the details of users as you can see it over here. Let me run users table query. So here it will have the details of users detail and first name, last name, email, username, and the capability which holds the entitlement for each and every user. What are actors are present? So you can see that the user wise if I sort it out, like for 1A, the user has the capability of super approve, reject, input. So first thing we need to configure that application and make sure the test connection is successful, and also you have to configure the schema where you would be defining what are the attributes you would be having. And provisioning policy at JDBC is that like we need to create a plan to send it over to do the provisioning. We have to create a form. What are the input which we are supposed to get it? As you can see, the data is maintained here. This one will be requested as it is an entitlement, and this will be we would be getting it from the users like users employee ID and username, first name, last name, email. So we need to define that the first name, last name, email, employee ID, username. So all of them we would be defining it over here. As you can see, simply if I take one uh, like identity.get attribute of employee ID and email ID identity.get email. So if there is an email, it will be the API we would be using and retrieving that value. It is we are fetching it from the identity, so it will be first and it will be added into the provisioning plan. Provisioning policies is used to get the values, whatever you are defining it over, that will be added into the provisioning plan to do the provisioning. That is, create the account, modify the account, whatever you are going to do. And correlation, we have already we have used rule to do a correlation here instead of correlation config. Here you can see that if identity attribute name employee ID, whatever we are getting it, it's an employee ID. The value is matching, then it will be correlated. And then we have a rule, the provisioning. As I said, the provisioning is supposed to be happen uh, through executing the query. We have a users table and capabilities table. Whenever we are creating an user, we should add a entry into this particular table, and we need to add a details, access detail into this table. So this is what we are supposed to do. So that the execution we have to add it in the provisioning rule. Let's take a look into this in a bit later, in a minute. So this is a configuration which we are supposed to do, and obviously the capabilities having multiple. So we have done this. We have done the merging over here. So ID is the key index column, and we are merging with capability so that it will be merged, and you will see this access like this. For example, if we take the RN Nichols, it will have this user having access to approve, input, reject, super, right? So it will be added based on the merging configuration. It will be displayed as a single row. So as you can see, we have to run the aggregation to run the pull the data from the database to SailPoint. For that, we would be using this SQL statement. So aggregation is the one we would be using. If you wanted to dedicatedly use any query for test connection, you can write it over here. This is for single account aggregation where you can see the filter. So these are the configuration. So this application is already set. As you can see here, there are aggregation ran, and we have 59 users are in the system which is got correlated and created. Okay. So now what we are going to do is like first we will understand what provisioning we are supposed to do, like what we have written in the provisioning rule. So here I have gone with this global provisioning rule. That means like whenever we are doing provisioning, when we say provisioning, it's not only the create, modify also considered as the provisioning, delete also considered as the provisioning, enable, disable if it is part of it, that will also be considered as the provisioning. So either you can write one rule where you can take care of all the operation, or you can write a operation rule. By operation, you can see that enable, disable, delete, unlock, create, modify. So when you are writing it, that based on that, this the respective operation will be rule will be called to perform that operation. So let's take a look into that rule. Before that, let's submit the request. Then I will get to the rule so that you will understand better. Okay, so let's pick some user. I'm just going to submit one request for user. Let me go to manage access, manage user access. I'm going to select some user who does not have access to it. I'm picking Benjamin Hicks, and let's select the application. I'm going with a filter to select the track application. Sorry, it's a track application. I will be applying that, and I'm going to add approve access and then next. So I just reviewed it. Okay, I'm just going to submit the request. So the request will be submitted, and then when it is submitted, currently I haven't configured any approval, so it will be skipping that approval. It will be directly provisioning that by executing the this particular rule. Let's take a look into the rule once we review that request. So as you can see, the request ID is coming, request submitted successfully. The ID for this request is 10. So let's go and track the request first to see what happened in the request. So as you can see, I just submitted for Benjamin Hicks. Request ID is 10. If I open that request, you can see that completion status is pending and execution is verifying. And if we go here, I requested for capability of approve on user Benjamin Hicks track application, that you can see provisioning status is completed. If you see the provisioning status is complete, committed or finished, that means it is provisioned. Okay. So here, as you can see, these are the details. As you can see, that capability is the one which we have added. First name, last name, email, ID, these and all we have set it in the provisioning policy. There is two page, so I'm just going back. It's a create account, or then we can expand and then see it. Let's expand this to 10. So you can see that all this is a create account. On this, we are passing these attributes. This is requested. These attributes are coming from the provisioning policy, which will be passed to do a provisioning. So let me copy the user Benjamin Hicks and see that whether that user access is created or not. Okay, so first I will check it under users table. As you can see, there is a entry. I'm just copying it and paste it over here to see the capability, whether this user has only approved. Okay, yeah, I have requested for approve. This access has been added over here. Okay, so now let's understand how this provisioning works. As I said, in JDBC, we have to configure the query. What are the queries supposed to be executed to do this provisioning, right? I'm going with a very simple query. So let me copy this. I think I have already copied over here. Yeah, it's already here. So let's understand how this query is working. Okay. So let me go to that. The method, it will start from here. This is where it will start. These are the method call which we are which might be called, we would be calling it inside the main method. So it will start from here. Here we are setting the day and provisioning result we are creating it. Why? Because as I said, in JDBC we have to create write a logic to insertion into the table, and you have to set the provisioning result as well. It's partially we have to do it. Here you have a application as an input, and schema as an input. Connection is coming. Whatever is configured in this particular application, that connection you will have it. Plan is an input. We are going to take a plan and connection as a major input, and we are going to use it. So our uh, requirement is to insert the entry into the users table and capabilities table, right? So it's just a print statement which we are using. I haven't enabled the logger, so I'm just using the syswo. So it will be printed in the console, or like yeah, in the console Tomcat server file. And what I'm doing is I'm getting the account request from the plan. and I'm getting the native identity, and I'm iterating over the account request which I got it. If it is greater than 0, then I'm iterating over, first checking that not null, not empty, and iterating over the account request to get the attribute request. From the attribute request, if you see that this is the method. So in this method, I will be passing that with attribute name and value. So before that, let me show the plan from the UI so that you will have a better understanding how it is being like referred and retrieve the value. Okay, so I'm just going to show it from the debug page. The request ID is 10, right? So I just copied that as well. It's a request. Okay, 10. If you see that here, we will be having a master plan. I am showing it from here to make you understand what exactly it is. So in the master plan, as you can see, we have requested for this, but when it is compiled, right, the compiled plan will have the value from the provisioning policy. So we have to refer this one. I'll highlight it. This is the provisioning plan. This is what we are having it. So when we are getting the account request, it will be taking this. When we are iterating over this account request, the only one request we have it. From this, it will try to get the attribute request where you can see that name and value. So this is what we are trying to get it from here. So I'm passing the name as an account, which is nothing but that account or the account request which I am iterating, and from the account request I wanted to get the attribute request value of attribute request of ID. So here we are checking that if it is not null, get attribute request, and where attribute is the ID, it will be getting and it will return that value. So here it will be returned the ID is having 1B, 2B, 3D, 4D. So it will be added, it will be returned. So that will be stored in the native identity. Okay, sorry, that will be stored in the ID. And after that, I'm checking. As I said, I have used the global provisioning rule. So global provisioning rule will be called for all type of operation on just JDBC application based on your feature string, like whatever you have configured. So, but now we are concentrating on the create. So if the account request operation is create, then it will go inside this if condition. If it is modify, it will go inside this. And if it is delete, it will go inside this operation. So I have enabled only the create, modify, delete, and for other operation, it will just simply say print it in the background, the console that it is unknown operation. Okay. So coming back to the create, in the create, what is our requirement? We need to insert the entry, insert the query into the user table as well as the capabilities table. And capability is a multi-valued, insertion into the user table is a single value. So as you can see here, we are preparing the query and then I'm calling this method. This method is to add the entry into this users table. As you can see, I'm passing the query, and account is nothing but account request. That means like it will take this full account request. It will be passing that account request ID which we have got the value of this employee ID, the ID which we are passing it, and then native identity. Native identity is something we are getting it from the plan. In the plan, you can see that native identity is Benjamin Hicks. So this value we are passing it. Why? Because we need to use this. So that's why we are passing it. Let's go to this particular method. Here, if you see that I'm using the input connection and preparing the statement using by the query which I am passing it, and there is the input which we need to pass dynamically. So that value I'm getting it. ID, native identity, I have already got and stored it in a variable, but first name, last name, email, which is all present in the attribute account request of attribute request. If you see that inside this, I have an attribute request where I have this first name, last name, email. So what I will be doing, I will be passing that respective value and pass it and execute the update. So it will update that, insert the execute this query, which is the insertion into user table, which will be executed and added the entry into the user table. Once this is done, then we need to do for the capability. So capability again, as I said, like capability is having the list. When it is a single value, you will see it as a string, but when it is a multiple selection, right, you can it will be coming as a list. So we are iterating over the attribute request. We are getting it from the attribute request, and here we are getting only checking for the capability. If the attribute request name is get name of attribute request is capability, then you get the value and write insertion. This is in iteration. Okay, so we are getting it and then we are going to inserting into the iteration table. So here, if you see this, this is insert or update capabilities table. Here we are passing query ID and capability. Then here you will be just getting that connection and then pass that value executed. It's a very straightforward, simple use case where this, whenever you are requesting for the access, it will be inserting into the user and capabilities table. So we have used some reusable methods to use it. Why? Because when it is coming to modify, again we need to add an insertion into the capability, right? Capabilities table. So that's why we are created as a method instead of uh, adding it, I mean, uh, placing it inside the if block. So we can reuse it. So it will be checking that if the entry is present, it will be deleted and whatever is been selected, that will be added. It is a override that we would be doing. So we would be calling that. The query we are specifying over here, which query we are going to execute it. Okay. So yeah, this is the demo of it. And if you go to the account, we have verified in the target application, that is, this is the table where we have updated, right? If we go to the accounts, and as we said that, like we have Benjamin Hicks, right? As you can see, you don't see this Benjamin's Hicks. It is 159 user. If I refresh it, it will come back. So as you can see, it is coming here now, and 160. The user is added now, as per the request, and it's a capability approved and email, whatever the value we have passed, all the details are coming, and it is successfully provisioned. It is committed. So what the request, if you see it, it is still in verifying state, right? So when the perform identity request maintenance task is running, after that it will be reviewed. If the access is proper, then it will be marked as the completed state. Okay, the task will be running for the every it is scheduled and it will be checking the access request for 5 I think default is 7 days. You can configure it, but default is 7 days. So this is the demo of the JDBC application, how the rule is written, when it is called, how the value is passed, all those stuff. You can see it. Yeah. Thank you.